of you know that I am part of the Franklin County EMS, and I've been a part of it for many years now. The EMS has changed the way I've seen life in general, and one of the biggest eye-openers I've ever seen is the overdose runs. So my very first overdose run I've ever been on when I was 16. The call got called for a female not breathing a possible overdose. My heart breaks for these addicts because they choose to go down a long, enduring road that always comes to a dead end. And the dead end is death. And death comes a lot sooner than what we would expect. At the time, EMS did not have Narcan on their units, and so by the time we got there, the police had it, so they gave her the Narcan. When we got there, she became breathing and responsive again, and we transported her to a nearby hospital. In the transport, I was sitting next to her while she was on the bed, and she looked at me, and her eyes were bloodshot, her face was pale, and her voice was shaky and weak. She looked at me and grabbed my arm and goes, "You don't need to do this. Don't be like me, you're going to be a good girl." When she told me that, I got chills, and I still get chills down my back to this day. Franklin County now supplies Narcan on their units, and overdoses have not decreased. On April 25th, there was a female in New Trenton who overdosed, and she was revived by Narcan. On April 30th, 5 days later, she overdosed again and she passed away. She left behind a daughter and a mother who was dying of cancer and was only expected a year to live. With seeing all that and the repeating customers, I believe that after an overdose and Narcan is used, patients should be mandated to go on to rehab. The previous speeches have told you that many Narcan revivals don't get the proper treatment that they need after they get revived. Many people believe that Narcan is a way to go with cutting down on overdoses and addiction. I've noticed with personal experience, and many people believe that Narcan is a cure-all because it saves so many lives. Narcan is saving people who overdose from death, not from having an overdose or even having an addiction in the first place. So why I believe that Narcan should go to a rehab after Narcan is used is because, like I stated before, most of them don't get proper treatment after they are revived. All they get are discharge papers and papers for options to get help. I think that if it's mandated to go to a rehab center, the amount of overdoses and drug addicts would decrease because people are getting clean. New York is trying to pass a law that mandates this, and the New York State Senator Robert Ortt says that we need to ask ourselves, what is the end goal here? Is it to help stop the epidemic, or is the goal just to enable the addiction or enable the use of heroin and opiates? To me, the goal is to save lives, but also end addiction and try to treat this epidemic. President Obama proposed $1.1 billion in new funding to address the prescription opiate abuse and heroin epidemic, says whitehouse.gov. With all of that funding going to Narcan kits, we could use some of that to help fund the rehab centers so more people can get admitted to them. So even though Narcan is available now on our county's EMS, overdoses still happen. It's not helping people overcome their addiction. I can prove that it's not helping with people with their addiction because if the female who overdosed and died was mandated to go to rehab, on her first overdose on April 25th, she would not have died of an overdose on April 30th, 5 days later. She would still be with her dying mother and watch her little baby grow up. With all this death around us, it saddens me that we as a county have not done more to help prevent addiction and to help stop the epidemic before it has even changed to get the and help stop the epidemic before it had changed to get this large. For the sake of our future kids and for the sake of America's future, we need to look into who are willing to take a stand with help fighting addiction and help decrease the amount of repeat customers and help decrease the amount of overdose deaths.
So, has there ever been a case that you've been a part of or you've heard of where there was an overdose victim and then they had Narcan, and then they were let go, and then it happened again?
Oh yeah, I actually had an EMS meeting last Wednesday and we were talking about Narcan, and there was a lady who is an advanced EMT and she goes to like a lot of them, and there's a guy in Ripley County who's had Narcan 16 times.
look, or like what percentage does it?
I don't know the exact percentage, but a lot of times it like will stop the overdose. But with the one lady who overdosed the second time, I just think that they didn't call it in the right amount of time, and she passed away before they could get there.
Can Narcan be treated to all drugs, not just heroin?
It's like the opiate ones and like some prescription,
What does that mean?
like how I told you the girl in the beginning of my speech, the very first one, she overdosed on prescription medication, so that helped it. There's a heroin one, and like the ones that are like the opiates. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that person you said who was Narcan 16 times, do you think there should be a limit on how many times, like, keep a record?
Yeah, that's why I think that like once you get it the first time, like even with prescription medication, like if there was a actual reason, like with the first girl, like her mom accidentally did it, like if you're addicted to prescription stuff like that and you overdose, then you should go to a rehab center, just like with the heroin and everything else.
If you get Narcan a lot, can it like have bad side effects?
Mm-mm. Like, I mean, it's probably not recommended, but if me and you were just sitting here and they like, you took the Narcan, nothing would happen to you. I mean, it's not recommended, but it doesn't happen to you.
So there's like no addictive properties to Narcan. There's no.
So if Narcan stops an overdose, is it almost like, I mean, if it counteracts a drug, is there a way, like, if you were to sit in here and took it, would you get a high from the Narcan?
No, I don't think so. Out of the research I've done, like, the Narcan sends things to your brain, because, like, with drugs, it does something to your brain, so, like, it reverses that. But you don't get high from the Narcan. I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me, but.
All right.